Now's the time.
I'm back. Danielle Kanda-Kaiser on behalf of Common Sense Kids Action. Again, we are in full support of SB 62 and the Apple program. We gave this bill our Star Award for kids and the support it will give for our children and our teachers in this state. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Mr. Chairman, members, thank you so much for having us today. My name is George Cordero. I'm representing on behalf of the University of Southern California. I'm here to speak in support of restoring the Cal Grants for students who attend independent and nonprofit universities. As you know, USC has the largest concentration of Cal Grant students in the independent nonprofit sector, with over 2,300 students receiving Cal Grants this year. These students represent California's best and brightest, but as you know, poverty will follow you whether you apply for USC or UCLA. 60% of our Cal Grant students come from families who make $40,000 annually per year. More importantly, our Cal Grant students graduate at impressive rates of 84% in 4 years and 90% in 6 years. So once again, I'm here in support of restoring the Cal Grants for students in independent private universities.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to comment. My name is Laura Szabo-Kubitz, and I'm here on behalf of both the Institute for College Access and Success, also known as TICAS, and the Coalition of Californians for College Affordability, a diverse group of more than 20 organizations united in strengthening need-based financial aid for our state's low-income students. Our coalition's top priorities are to increase both the number of competitive Cal Grants and the size of the Cal Grant B Access Award, both of which serve the neediest Californians at all types of colleges. Despite incremental steps to strengthen college affordability, today there are still hundreds of thousands of eligible Cal Grant applicants, many with incomes below poverty, that go unserved. And the Cal Grant B Access Award that helps the neediest pay for critical non-tuition costs is worth just 1/4 its original value. As discussed today, a TICAS analysis, which I've included with other research of ours that support our coalition's priorities and which I shared with the sergeant to share with all of you, finds that for 2016-17, there will be at least $41 million in surplus middle-class scholarship funds. That is money that, if it goes unspent, will be returned to the state's coffers, and instead we urge using it to increase both the Access Award and the number of competitive grants which help the neediest Californians access and succeed in college. Thank you very much.
And we have your additional information here. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Next speaker.
Chair and members, Sarah Arce on behalf of the Campaign for College Opportunity. We are also part of the coalition, the TICAS coalition, and in the interest of time, I'll just say me too to her great comments. Separate from that coalition, we also support restoring the Cal Grant Award for students attending private nonprofits, as independent colleges play a critical role in helping provide access in our state. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good morning, Meredith Turner with the Cal State Student Association. We too are a part of the coalition led by TICAS, and so I want to align my comments with Laura's. In addition, CSSA is particularly supportive of funding for the Cal Grant B Access Award. Providing those additional dollars to our students to pay for things outside of tuition is critical to their success. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Luis Jimenez. I'm here on behalf of the Student Senate for California Community College, which proudly represents over 2.1 community college students across California. We strongly appreciate all the efforts on behalf of the legislator to further increase the Cal Grant program and allocate more funding to resources for our students. But there are things that I find rather disheartening, such as, for example, the fact that even with last year's increase in number of awards, there are still more than 10 students eligible applicants for each award. I personally sometimes have struggled with making ends meet as a student. Fortunately, I've landed 2 jobs and have found stability between representing 2.1 million college students and 21 units and an internship. And I'm just an 18-year-old first college generation student, but also you have to think to yourself, what about those students out there who have it worse than I do? What about those students who are the head of their household? What about those students who don't have that financial assistance that I seek for myself, but they could use far more help than I do? The Cal Grant B Access Award, which most low-income recipients get to help pay for college costs beyond tuition, like room and board and books and supplies, is worth 1/4 of its original purchasing power. I'm grateful today to be a Californian who was allowed the opportunity to be here and express our students' voice due to the strong support programs I have been afforded.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Ryan McElhaney with the Community College League of California, testifying on California's 72 community college districts. We're here because it's more expensive for a financially needy student to go to a UC or a CSU, and a way to fix this would be to reform the Cal Grant program in the ways that it serves community college students, so strengthening the Cal Grant B and C Access Grant or increasing the number of competitive awards. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Thank you, Mark McDonald, McCallum Group, on behalf of a number of local community college districts, including Los Rios, Los Angeles, San Diego, and the South Orange County community college districts. And we would align our comments with the league representative and note that not only has that report indicated that community college students pay more net cost, but we disproportionately educate economically disadvantaged students, and would really encourage you to increase the access award of the Cal Grant B, because those ancillary costs, while we have low fees, are what can really make or break students in college. Thank you.
Thank you. Last speaker.
Hi, Marty Fisher, California Chamber of Commerce, and we're just here in support of restoring the cuts to the Cal Grant C Award. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I want to thank all of the speakers who addressed us. We will now move from the Student Aid Commission portion of our agenda. We'll now move to the UC and CSU. And there will be time for public comment after the next three presentations. Did you have something?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, where is the total spending for Cal Grant program projected for 16-17? Where is that in our staff report?
I'll ask Steph. And if we don't, do you have it there?
Or how do I translate what we do have?
Well, here's what I'll do. I'll ask do you guys have that information handy? Okay, yeah. So Department of Finance or Student Aid Commission will get you the information.
Yeah, it's always nice to have something visual that shows that there's a decline in Cal Grant, so you can see what we're dealing with.
Sure. Yeah, appreciate that, Senator Moloch. With that, we are now going to move on to University of California and Cal State University. This is going to be on the topic of outside professional activities. It's an information-only item, and we'll call up Dennis Larson, who's Executive Director of Compensation Programs at the UC, and Carrie Hemphill-Reith, who is the University Counsel, Office of the Chancellor with the CSU. And Mr. Larson will go first.
Good morning, Senator Block and members of the committee. My name is Dennis Larson. I'm the Executive Director of Compensation Programs and Strategy, Office of the President of the University of California. I have responsibility for administering the policy and program pertaining to the outside professional activities for the Senior Management Group, or SMG, I'll refer to them as, which are the university's top administrators, including the chancellors. I'll provide you with an overview of the process and policy on outside professional activities, or OPA. Policy has existed on outside professional activities in some form since 1995. Excuse me. Your briefing notes provide some background on the history of this policy. Current policy was adopted by the Regents in 2010 and incorporated clarifying language and placing limitations on the number of externally compensated for-profit governance board activities to 3. At that time, the Regents recognized the value of allowing this type of service, recognizing that this was a common practice among other institutions of higher education, the vast majority of which allow external service, including compensated board service. The scope of the policy applies only to members of the senior management group, approximately 200 individuals. There are 3 important principles that the OPA policy governs. With conflict of interest, SMG members may not participate or influence a university's decision in which they have a financial interest, as defined by the Political Reform Act. The responsibility for determining and disclosing an actual or apparent conflict of interest rests first with the SMG member and then with his or her approving authority. A conflict of commitment is a subjective judgment by the SMG member or approving authority regarding the time required to reasonably fulfill the outside professional activity, and or where participation in that activity otherwise is incompatible with their responsibilities to the university. The third principle is apparent conflict of interest and or commitment. The policy notes that instances may occur where there is an appearance of conflict of interest even though the SMG member does not have a financial interest in the activity. SMG members are expected to exercise integrity and good judgment and must avoid the appearance of favoritism in all the dealings on behalf of the university. With regard to outside service, the policy makes a distinction between compensated and uncompensated activities. For compensated activities, SMG members are limited to serving on 3 for-profit boards where the member has governance responsibilities, and any exceptions must be approved by the regents. Governance is defined as serving in a decision-making role on a for-profit board and does not include serving in an advisory capacity. Personal time must be used for compensated service, either off-hour time and/or vacation time. For uncompensated activities, there are no specific limits on number of activities an SMG member may participate in. However, they are still subject to the conflict of commitment rule. You have in your briefing notes an overview of the university's review and approval process as well as reporting requirements, so I won't go into a lot of detail on this section, but would like to state that the SMG member must complete a pre-approval request form and provide details on the proposed service to his or her approving authority. For the president's direct reports, and that includes chancellors, the SMG member's request is reviewed by the General Counsel's Office to identify potential structural conflicts of interest or commitment, relying on the information provided by the member. If the request is approved, a letter is issued to the SMG member reminding them of their requirements under the state law that the member must recuse him or herself from making or influencing decisions in which they have a material financial interest. Only after receiving approval can the SMG member announce or participate in the proposed activity. In 2010, the Association of Governing Boards conducted a survey of presidents and chancellors regarding their service on for-profit corporate boards. The results of the survey showed that the vast majority of respondents allow corporate board activity and earnings to be retained. We also performed an informal survey of Association of American University Institutions, which showed that none of the responding institutions reported prohibitions on participation in outside activities, and none prohibited receiving income from these activities. In summary, this policy is intended to support and recognize the value of SMG members' outside professional activities to the university, such as contributing to their academic field, sharing their expertise with other institutions, and providing service to the community. While these activities are often beneficial to the university and to the members themselves, the primary commitment of an SMG member must be to fulfill their regular university responsibilities. The policy aims to assess the risks such as conflict of interest, conflict of commitment, and apparent conflicts of interest or commitment associated with outside professional activities, and to establish a review and approval procedures that address these concerns. Additionally, the policy provides guidance about the limits of such activities in relationship to fulfilling university responsibilities. Based on recent events, the University of California Board of Regents has decided to fully review the current policy governing outside professional activities for senior managers, including chancellors. Thank you. That sums up my presentation. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. At this point, we'll move to Ms. Reith. Is
Good
it
morning.
Reith or Reith?
Reith.
Okay, I want to say it right. Ms. Reith, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Block and members of the committee. My name is Carrie Reith, and I serve as University Counsel for the California State University System. As part of my responsibilities, I provide guidance and expertise on conflicts of interest and records access issues. I'd like to thank your committees for inviting CSU to share the policies we have in place to ensure that our employees remain committed to serving CSU and our students free from both conflicts of interest and commitment. There are 3 main policies which address conflicts of commitment and interest: our outside employment disclosure requirements for management personnel and executive employees, our executive level appointment letters, and the Form 700 disclosures. I'll begin by addressing CSU's policy regarding outside employment. In response to a finding of the California State Auditor, the Board of Trustees passed a resolution in 2013 that staff covered by the Management Personnel Plan and executive employees shall be required to report outside employment. With the passage of the board's resolution, CSU implemented the policy called the Outside Employment Disclosure Requirements for Management Personnel Plan and executive employees. The policies require that all members of our MPP, nearly 4,000 employees, and all executive employees disclose outside employments and at several different intervals: at the time of hire, annually, within 30 days of accepting employment, and within 10 days of any request by a supervisor. The policy broadly defines outside employment as any income received not compensated through the CSU payroll. Simply put, any work that results in reportable income for which a 1099 or W-2 is issued must be reported. Per the policy, all outside employment disclosures should be reviewed and acknowledged by an appropriate administrator for conflicts of commitment. For our executives and presidents, the administrator who reviews these forms is the chancellor and/or the board of trustees. The approving administrator would ensure that their full-time state employees are not taking outside employment that would interfere with their obligations to the CSU. The administrator has the authority to advise the employee if the employee's outside employment is in conflict with CSU employment and cannot continue. While an employee should not be terminated simply for holding outside employment, if the outside employment prevents the employee from performing CSU work assignments and negatively impacts the employee's work performance, they could be non-retained. Disclosure and approval of outside employment is a precondition of employment at the CSU at the time of hire. For current employees, approval is not required prior to the commencement of outside employment, but the employee must timely disclose outside employment within 30 days of acceptance. The second policy that protects the public interest are our executive appointment letters. Since becoming chancellor of the CSU, Dr. Timothy White has added language to the appointment letter of every vice chancellor and every president that limits their service to 2 corporate boards and requires that they obtain his advance approval before sitting on a board. This is to ensure that board service does not pose a conflict of interest or commitment. The process for executive board approval was started by Chancellor Reed in about 2008, but it was formalized by Chancellor White. Although this language doesn't appear in the appointment letter of every sitting vice chancellor or president, Chancellor White recently informed all executives that this same process applies to every vice chancellor and to every president. Today, out of CSU's 23 campus presidents and 6 vice chancellors, only 2 serve on corporate boards and receive compensation. CSU San Bernardino President Tomas Morales earns $12,000 per year as a board member of the United Health Group of New York, and he participates in 4 telephonic meetings per year in that role. CSU East Bay President Leroy Morishita is a board member and currently chair of the board of JA Health Trust Benefits. He participates in 4 meetings a year and earns $16,000 per year, all of which he donates to charitable organization, with the majority going to CSU East Bay's Pioneer Scholarship Fund and other campus causes. With only 2 presidents reporting outside employment, both with a limited time commitment and neither of which poses a conflict of interest or commitment, we don't believe that outside employment is an issue at CSU. That said, we'd like to keep it that way, and we'd like to do more to improve and better ensure the public trust. CSU is committed to improve its policy, transparency, and accountability in 3 ways. 1, our outside employment policy will be revised to better define and more clearly communicate outside employment policy objectives and develop stronger monitoring requirements to better accomplish policy objectives. Specifically, the revised policy will establish reporting requirements for each campus at the system-wide level, and it will provide clear policy objectives and guidance to determine when a conflict of commitment exists and the steps that should be taken if a conflict is found. 2, the outside employment disclosure and acknowledgement form for management personnel plan and executive employees will be revised as well. First, all affected employees will be required to complete a disclosure form, and not just those who have outside employment to report. Second, the form will include a detailed checklist of possible types of outside employment and will require the affected employee to select yes or no so that they have a clearer understanding of what's being asked of them. We believe that these changes will allow CSU to receive a clear and accurate report of outside employment of every affected employee. Third, while outside employment disclosure forms are public records and subject to the Public Records Act, we intend to increase transparency by publicly reporting any outside employment of our presidents and vice chancellors. We believe that these improvements will ensure that both CSU and members of the public are accurately informed about the outside employment of all management and executive employees, and better positioned to prevent conflicts of commitment. The final policy I'll address today, the Form 700 process, protects against conflicts of interest. CSU employees should always act in the best interest of the university and not their own pocketbooks. I know that you're all intimately familiar with the Form 700 Statement of Economic Interest. Like every state agency, employees serving in a designated position at CSU must file an annual Form 700. Designated positions and the disclosure categories assigned to them are determined by each campus and the Office of the Chancellor using detailed guidelines established by the Chancellor's office, system office. The disclosure categories and list of designated positions must be approved by the Fair Political Practices Commission, and we refer to this list of our disclosure categories and designated positions as our Conflict of Interest Code. Our current code includes 17 disclosure categories, and the disclosure categories are assigned to each employee individually. In 2007, we submitted our code to the FPPC for our standard annual review, revision, and approval. The FPPC, like all state agencies, was hit hard by recession, by the economic downturn, and furloughs left it tremendously backlogged. Our conflict of interest code hasn't been approved since that time, but we've been working very closely with the FPPC on an updated code. That updated code will make sweeping changes, and we're actually very close to finalizing it. The changes are designed to make our disclosure categories easier to understand and to develop greater consistency for how the disclosure categories assigned across all 23 campuses. Once the FPPC approves our revised code, it will go before our Board of Trustees, and we hope to complete this process by the end of the year. Over the last 2 years, CSU has also been working to improve its training on conflict of interest, and we intend to continue that effort. I hope I've provided you a helpful overview, and I'm happy to take any questions that you might have.
Yeah, thank you both. I'll start with a few, and then we'll see other members of the panel probably have questions as well. For the CSU, this doesn't seem to be a major issue, executive outside compensation. You say just 2 executives, at least at the president's level. But you also include MPP employees in this. How many would you estimate MPP employees have outside compensation?
We don't track that information. Each campus collects the forms, and we don't do any sort of reporting at the system level. So we'd have to go back and ask each campus, and that's not data that we currently have. It's something that we're committing to do in a change of the policy.
Okay, on the campus and at the UC as well, when decisions are made by the superior, whether it's the president, chancellor, or some other executive, is there a standard by which they make these determinations other than conflict of interest? I understand conflict of interest is one issue, but the issue that really has brought this to all of our attention was Chancellor Katay at UC Davis working on boards for DeVry and also a Wiley Publishing Company. I'm not sure if either one of those is certainly an economic conflict of interest, assuming she was doing it in her hours, vacation hours, or off time. But they both, at least one of them, seemed to be an inappropriate choice. Arguably, both of them might have been inappropriate choices for different reasons. So by what standard do you judge before you give an approval or withhold an approval?
So our policy provides guidance, but it's geared more toward evaluating the commitment, the conflict of commitment. So it's looking at what's the time commitment that's involved. Will those be, is it required during state time when you should be working on your CSU business, and is it interfering with your practice?
Yeah, understand that part.
For our executives, though, our vice chancellors and our presidents, there's an additional layer, which is the approval of the chancellor, and that's for sitting on corporate boards, and it would address the situation that you discussed, where the chancellor is looking at it with a lens of both conflict of commitment and conflict of interest.
Okay. And how about UC?
UC follows a very similar process. The chancellor, and I'll use it as an example, would submit a request to the president for her review and approval. In the situation with Chancellor Katay and DeVry, that request was submitted, but the approval was not granted before the announcement was made. The chancellor did not provide any service to the board. She stepped down immediately following, about a week after that announcement. Had the president been able to weigh in before that announcement was made, I think we would have seen a decline on that, a denial of
So
that
what
service.
she did, what Chancellor Katay did was in violation of your policy.
That's
but it would
correct.
have been in keeping with your policy because you don't need prior approval.
For a president, so we reverse our chancellors and presidents, then yes, she would have been required to seek the approval of the chancellor.
But you wouldn't have to have the approval prior to getting on the board.
That approval is prior to getting on the board for chancellors and for our executives.
Your
For
campus CEO, let's say.
correct.
Okay, all right. So being on the DeVry board, in the opinion of President Napolitano, was not appropriate, although she wasn't asked before.
Correct.
Is there any standard by which she decides that, or is it just pure discretion of the system-wide CEO?
Well, in our situation, we go through a very similar process. There's the conflict of interest and the conflict of commitment, and it speaks to the money and the time, effectively.
We're not speaking about it. DeVry isn't necessarily money or time. DeVry might not have been okay, but maybe being on the board of ACE would have been okay. Is there a standard by which one of your campus CEOs can decide whether this is or isn't a reasonable request in anticipation of asking? If it's purely the discretion of the system-wide CEO, that's okay. A little concerning maybe because there are more and less popular campus CEOs who may be impacted, but is there any standard, I guess?
Just that our chancellor looks to the integrity of what's being asked and, has high standards in terms of, preventing both conflicts of interest and commitment. And if there was an appointment that wouldn't be, well received by the members of the public, I suspect that it's something that he would resist and deny.
I think there are other aspects, and it does come down to judgment. DeVry was being investigated by the federal government. This is probably not a good decision to join a board of an organization that's under investigation until that's at least been cleaned up. So I think judgment factors heavily in these decisions to some extent.
And I think your systems both sound, rather comprehensive, and obviously a lot of thought and goodwill has gone into them. Concerned about consequences if a campus CEO ignores the process, as Dr. Katehi did. There didn't seem, now there apparently are consequences because of a whole series of other things, but there didn't seem to be any consequence because she didn't follow process.
Well, in Chancellor Katehi's situation, the president is the chancellor's boss. And the manager of any individual who's violating policy takes into account the full spectrum of performance, the missed opportunities, the missteps, as well as the successes. And all of us go through a performance evaluation on an annual basis. So it'll be up to the president to make the decision as to how to weigh out the successes and the failures.
Okay. And how long has UC had this system in place?
1995.
And in that time, how many denials have there been from the system-wide CEO?
I couldn't tell you that. I've been here 10 years. There have been a number of instances where requests have been made that have been turned down, but I couldn't give you an absolute number.
Okay, thank you both. Move now to Vice Chair Morlock.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the dinners I attend every year is the Forum for Corporate Directors. So it's quite impressive to they get honored, and so you have about 5 individuals that are honored, and so these people are just incredible. Get to meet the director or president of Nike, and just an incredible agenda. So I'm sitting here going, it would be really cool if more UC chancellors were on these boards. That's quite a testimony of their caliber and just what they're going to learn in that process. So my reaction wasn't as visceral as it was next door here. And in fact, this might apply to my colleagues, but with the calendars we keep, when someone says, will you serve on our board, I say, well, what does it pay? Because if it's 0, I'm not in. I'm just maxed out. So I'm just sort of curious. CSU has disclosed all of its campus chancellors, and the participation is almost de minimis. Almost embarrassing. But UC, do you have any knowledge of what the other chancellors are doing around the state.